What do you do when a resident is reluctant to leave your transitional housing facility? Do you call the police? Do you kick them out? Do you evict them? What do you do? Well, this is a very serious situation to be in, and how you handle it is critical to not only your success, your reputation, but everything that you're built upon. So it's important to know exactly what to do when you're dealing with somebody who does not want to leave your property. So welcome to Live for Free, where we transform lives. And in today's episode, we're going to be addressing this particular conversation altogether. What do you do when residents are reluctant to leave your housing facility and who may have repeated violations? So be sure to get your pen and paper out, because this is going to be one of those lessons that you're going to want to keep for your records. So let me just jump right in, because I always like to tell people, you do not want to get to the point where the police are called to your property, okay? And I'm going to tell you why first. So, especially here in the state of Missouri, in the city of St. Louis, when the police are called to your property, it is deemed as, and they're called a lot of times, is deemed as a nuisance property, right? You do not want to be classified as a nuisance property. So once you're classified as a nuisance property, it's really hard to get out from underneath that radar. There's different things, the ways in which you move, that you do not want that to happen. So you want to make sure that at all costs, you do not end up on a nuisance list, because once you're on a nuisance list, it's really hard to get off, and people are watching you for like a whole 12 months at times. So you want to really avoid from getting on that list. The way that you avoid getting on that list, because you can get on the list from obviously phone calls to 911, regardless of even whether it's an emergency or the police coming out. Even if individuals are coming and they're actually hurt due to something of their own doing, that will go against your property. If somebody ends up overdosing in the property or doing something that they can control, that goes against you as well. So they usually look at that within a 12-month period, and what they deem as too many calls, because there's really no threshold on that from what I can tell. But when you have excessive calls over a period of time and the police have been called out for no reason in their minds that are out of that person's control, you now are on a nuisance list. So you really want to get to the point that you are not on their list, because now you're on their radar, and you'll stay on their radar for a period of time because they watch you, monitor. There's like several steps. So you really want to avoid the police being called out. So if at all possible, because your goal when someone does not want to leave your property is to always stay calm. You never want to get to the point where you're yelling back and forth with them, you're having confrontations with them, because it escalates a situation. So you want to always be the one in control of the conversation and know how to de-escalate. And depending on the circumstance with that individual, that could make or break you as it relates to the police coming out to your property. So, and as I said, I've been doing this for 14 years, and in this timeline, I can honestly say we've only had a handful of calls where we've had to deal with the police, but I'm going to walk you through how to do that so you can be successful when you actually open your transitional housing facility and you start bringing individuals in. So let's say it gets to the point where it's there. There's not too much you can do. They're threatening to call the police, okay? So as you're in that space, because you're in control still, and you also have to understand the role of the police when they call. Most people believe that when they call the police during this process, well, you can't kick me out. You gotta take me through the process. That's what most people say, right? And I typically have to inform them and say, remember all the times that we've sent you notifications indicating that you're in a program indicating that this does not operate in the same landlord tendency that you're used to. Once you do that enough and they understand, you shouldn't get to that point. But if they take you there, then you go ahead and get prepared. Now, the first thing I like to do whenever we get to this place is I will print out their full program agreement. Now, in that program agreement, because you have gone through the process to make sure on multiple places that you've shown them what the rules and regulations are. You should have it posted throughout the unit so they're aware of what those guidelines are, what your zero tolerance guidelines are, and all of the like. So printing that out helps you in two places. One, it's something that you can share with them directly and be able to show, look, do you see this here? This is where you signed off on that. You can point things out in a calm way and let them know that this here is a document that they signed off and agreed to. And, clearly, and if they want to call the police, they're welcome to do that, because it's simply what they're going to do is enforce what it is that you have. So once they understand that, hopefully they still don't get to the point where they call the police. But once again, having that document is something that prepares you, because you're the professional person coming in. That's the second thing it brings you. You're the professional person coming in to that situation, and they're just simply to enforce the guidelines. And that's what you're playing in the role doing. So on that agreement, I highlight it in yellow or pink, something that draws attention to all the violations if there were several, because you point out a lot of them, and clearly you get to determine which guidelines you have as zero tolerances or what your guidelines look like, but you have it in there multiple times and it's reinforced in multiple ways so that it doesn't get to this point. But now that it's here, you're highlighting that document. You got a document that you can truly give and show that they're in violation. Now, the one thing I want you to say, because remember, you're in control. So you're getting prepared, and it's more of a mental thing than it is a physical thing. Yes, you'll make sure you got the necessary paperwork, but you're coming in there not to make the situation worse. You're there to make the situation better and help move them along. Now, when the police show up at the property, and sometimes, just depending on how it plays out, because I'm there calm, I'm reinforcing what the guidelines are, and I'm speaking to them calmly about, you do understand, and then letting them know why this is a situation that is out of your control. So you're coming in basically as a person who's controlling the building, and you want to make sure in the program, and you simply are enforcing contract. And that's what you're doing with this. So when the police come, your goal is to make sure you're working with them and making sure that it gets to the point where there is peace. Because remember, when the police come out, they're coming out to do what? To keep the peace. They're not there to make sure you don't put someone out. That's not their job. The job of the police officer is there to maintain the peace. So whenever they show up, I'm the one who greets them. I do not let the resident greet them. I am the one who greets the police officer. And if I know they're coming or if someone's threatening to call, I'm already in motion. I'm not telling them I'm on my way. I don't do that stuff. I say, I understand if you feel like you must do that, but I make sure I'm there before the police come. And if it looks like I'm not able to show up or someone's not, and I'm usually the one who does it or someone who knows how to operate this way, then you have that conversation when you know you're available to be there. Because that's what you don't want to do, is have the police be there without you. Because when the police are there without you and someone's running off at the mouth, oh, she can't evict me. Sometimes you got police because they don't understand contracts. They don't understand how contracts are law. They sometimes don't understand how your program works. They simply voice what they think too. Yeah, you can't put them on. So they'll basically make them think that they have something to stand on, which in actuality they do not. You are running a program. The program dictates what it is that they're doing there, and it's documented in multiple places. So that's why you being there to set the tone, you being there to make sure they understand, their main role there is to make sure that peace is met. Now, I will tell you this, and I use this sometimes, whenever I am working with, and we're actually at a point where someone has to be ejected from the program, and now the police are called out, I really don't want the police there, because remember, I don't want it to be a nuisance property. Sometimes you can use leverage to help them get out without that happening. Sometimes we'll offer, I understand that this is a challenge for you. I understand, but you do understand what our guidelines are, right? Okay, great. So why don't we do this? I will give you another 24 hours to go ahead and collect your belongings, get some things done so that you can go out. And that way, it won't escalate to something where, because if the police come out, that moment you are no longer in the program. I need you to understand that. So I always use that as a little leverage to make sure that residents don't just simply think they can enforce that, because there's nothing they can do when the police come other than comply. And at that time, it's out of my hands. Once the police show up, it is out of my hands. They will be complying. We will be securing the property, making sure their belongings are no longer there, as well as them. And that's the process that we follow, because it is a program. And if they are in violation, putting other people at risk, and especially in your program, you can't have that. You have a responsibility to make sure that the people that are staying there are safe, and that everyone who's there is complying with the guidelines. So it is, like I said, it's a very touchy thing that you have to do, but it can be done. And you have to go in there setting the tone and making sure that when the police, if they do show up, their main objective is to keep the peace. And usually I will show them the document and say, oh, and I will thank them for coming and appreciate them for being there for me. See, they think that they're there for the resident. They're actually there for me to feel safe. So that's why I'm the first one greeting them. I'm the first one talking to them. I introduce myself, and depending on how you're structured, because you could be there as the program coordinator, they're managing the program and making sure you're enforcing the program guidelines. That's one position, and that's the typical position. But I also go in as the trustee of the property, because the way we structure things are in our trust. So we make sure that the board, we report to the board, we don't report to anyone else. So the way in which you're structured also dictates how things are set up as well. So if you got it on both sides, you're basically bulletproof to make sure that you are covered and protected with what contracts you have created. So as you're working with the officers, just to make sure that everything has been shared, they understand what's going on, they typically help you move it right along. I've had situations where the officers, after I have explained to them where the violations are, and many of them do come with crisis intervention skills so that they can help if it's a crisis moment or something, they can diffuse that and they can help bring us to a place where, this is where it is. And I've actually had officers stay until people have moved all of their belongings out of the property. They can't have it on the property. It has to be ejected from that space. It can be on the sidewalk, it just can't be in the property. Now, clearly you are not wanting to create that. So let me tell you, you're not trying to create that look, okay? Because as I said earlier, this is your reputation. You're creating a service. You're providing a space for people to be able to get better, but you also have to remember you're in a neighborhood with other people who are watching and they know what you're doing. So clearly you want to do this in the least amount of resistance as possible. You don't want the police to be there, but if they have to be there, you don't want to be putting people's stuff out on the street. You don't want to do that. Still remember, we're compassionate investors, so we really want to come from this in a compassionate space so that we have some empathy for people and we're not treating them like cattle or treating them like, oh, you're not done, you're out. We don't do that. So as long as when you're dealing with someone who's reluctant to leave, we do it in the best way possible and making sure that we're communicating clearly in a calm way to just get us to that place where the individual is leaving the program. So as you move through that place and through that, I always want to reinforce what everyone's role is. I'm there as the program coordinator or as the trustee, doing my job to make sure that that person is ejected smoothly out of the program. The officers are there to make sure that there's peace, making sure, because clearly the resident could be hostile, which It doesn't happen too often, believe it or not. You would think they'd be like ready to attack, but they go smoothly. And I'm gonna tell you why in just a moment. But their role is to simply move their things out or coordinate with you to make sure that their belongings can come out. Sometimes what we do, most of the time actually, we will just simply say, hey, you can no longer stay. We're gonna go ahead and, make sure that your things are protected behind lock and key right now. We'll coordinate with our property manager so that they can get you access to the building to get the rest of your belongings. That is the most course of action that most people do. But if people have vehicles, or if they already have a means of putting their stuff away, or they don't have a lot of stuff, sometimes they just simply go. So you just have to know how to navigate that space, because once again, it's your reputation. You want to make sure that you're not putting people out on the streets and looking like some person that has no heart, because that's not what we do. Now, clearly I've been in situations where it has gotten heightened. I would say out of the 14 years, maybe 2 times. And the first one was the worst one. I'll have to tell you about that story. Maybe I'll get a chance to tell that. But any case, the other one wasn't, after he calmed down, the police helped de-escalate the situation and we kept things moving. But I can count literally on one hand. We've only had like 1 or 2 that were really like extreme that I can recall. So like I said, it's how you go into this and making sure you have the skills necessary to do that smoothly. You do not allow yourself to get emotional around all of these things. And the most important thing is you want to make sure that clearly we are understanding what your rights are. Because at the end of the day, you have a program. You are structured now. I will encourage you in your area to look up what guidelines are there for your particular county, municipality, area, so that you fully understand what you can and cannot do. I know the way I'm structured and the way I'm set up, that doesn't take precedent over my trust structure. My contracts and with the trust actually override that. So depending on how you're structured will dictate what it is that you can do. But you clearly want to make sure you understand what your rights are so that as you move into this space, you can operate successfully. Because, typically programs are not a tenancy relationship. You don't have a landlord or a tenant. You actually have a resident or a participant in a program, and they've signed off properly. So hopefully you run everything through your legal advisors to make sure your paperwork is lined up beautifully. I have my own templates that I use. I can more than happily help you line that structure up for yourself if you like that. If you're interested in that, put some comments in the notes or in below, and I'll reach out to you so we can talk about how you can structure yours. But at the end of the day, you want to create something that's going to be successful for you. Now, we've gone through more than half of this video, and if you've not subscribed yet or done your notifications, go ahead and do that. I promise you're going to want more information as I continue to give you more knowledge around building transitional housing facilities in your area. And definitely look at the description below for the events that we've got coming up. And I'd love for you to join my school community. So as we go into this next phase, because I want to make sure that you've thought through this as fully as you can as a person who isn't just simply doing something for a monetary gain. You're doing it from a place of helping someone and being compassionate for those difficult situations. Because you truly are going to have to be that game changer in this space, because it does require a person who can be able to communicate clearly and calmly, being able to share with them. Even in the worst of frustrations, you're able to still walk them through that situation. So remember, you are in control of the conversation. I will tell you, when you do this, don't do it with them when they are hostile or when they're intoxicated or when they're under the influence, because you won't get anywhere and you will find yourself getting frustrated with them. because it's hard for people to understand when they're in that state of mind. So I would encourage you, as you move into this space, go into it clearly and calmly, understanding, what it is that they may be going through at that moment, and have some compassion. And if you can find a way to offer a solution for them, because once again, you're coming in, they clearly can't comply by your guidelines. They aren't trying to, so they can't stay there. Figuring out another strategy for them that will get them there instead of having them call the police. Because once, like I said, they call the police, that's almost like a done deal. There's nothing else you can do. So you really want to be a good communicator in difficult situations like this and figure out an alternative option you can offer them. Because when you can do that to successfully transition them out of your housing, it's like not only are you helping your situation and the people who stay in your housing, but you're also helping them get into something that might be better. So be connected to your local shelters and detox centers and other people who are in this space that they might be able to offer housing for them that you can't. You might know someone who doesn't have strict guidelines like you do. We have very strict guidelines that we have people comply with, but there's reasons for all of that because we are very successful in what we are able to create. And those guidelines, you'd be amazed at how many people really love what we do. And, we've had a couple people who were upset, but they understand because there wasn't anything we didn't tell them that we expected. They knew everything about what it is that we did and that we do for them. So you want to make sure that you are truly coming from a space of compassion and you're communicating clearly what the expectations are. So in this last piece, I want to talk specifically about those preventative measures that you can do for future residents who are coming into your housing, because this is critical. If you don't do this well, you're going to have a lot of that. That's why I told you I can count on one hand how many times we've had to actually have the authorities come out, and on that same hand, how many people we ever had to take through an eviction process. Because I'm not going to tell you that's never happened. I think we had one time. We actually had to do it one time out of 14 years. Never, and that was like at the beginning once I learned what to do. So you're basically getting this knowledge from somebody who's experienced what it takes to do this type of work. And that is the thing, when you can learn how to prevent these things from happening, you're talking about it's very peaceful. So I would encourage you to make sure you have a very robust screening process. I've been doing ours for years. It hasn't changed that much in the last few years because we've been doing it for so long. It's almost perfected to where I like it. And we still allow for some flexibility, but it's set. I know exactly what to ask. The first 5 questions, yep, you're not a good fit, and I move them on to someone else that I can place them in housing. That's how I like to move it. Those 5 questions, if they're not a good fit for us, I let them know, hey, I've got a couple of people I might be able to send you. I'll text those to you, and if something else changes on our end, I'll let you know, and I keep it moving. That's how we've trained our team. So having a very robust screening process for how you can screen for a specific type of behaviors or substance abuse or any type of history like that, it can help you be successful in the people you identify to be in your housing. I will also say being able to detect any issues before it actually happens. The best way I can think of, because early intervention is everything. So if I'm always aware of policies that come down the pike, for instance, related to this type of housing. So I'm always aware. That's why I always tell people all the time, be involved with your local continuum of care. It's called the COC. When you're connected with that COC, you're aware of what is coming down the pike as it relates to policies, related to homelessness, related to affordable housing. And so as long as you stay connected, you can see things before they actually happen. So you want to make sure you're monitoring for that and looking for even signs of you not being compliant so you can then quickly correct. I remember there was a time once, this was years ago, that impacted all of our housing. We had to quickly, because of some of the changes that they were making, quickly had to make changing to our structure to make sure we were solid so that, heaven forbid, someone came knocking on our door, we had all our ducks in a row. Those are the type of things you need to be aware of and aware of what's happening, because those things are preventing these type of things from happening. So being on top of that is definitely an advantage for you. But the most important thing that you can do out of everything I've talked about, because I don't know if you remember me saying earlier, we had done this and we had to have an eviction, right? That was early on. Well, when was the last time? That was like 13 years ago, 12 years ago. You have to have strong program agreements. You must have a very strong, with every detail laid out exactly how it knows, and that everybody fully understands what it is that they are agreeing to, and that they're signing off on that multiple different ways. Because there's some people might be limited in how they're reading. And so they're reading, you think they're reading it, but they don't understand how the words you got on that paper. Or someone might want to hear it better. So then hearing the audio of you going through the content, that's why we do this. And then regularly sending them messages about, okay, this, do that, do this. Oh, just a gentle reminder, be sure you know that we, even though, like the one with marijuana, even though marijuana is legal in the state of Missouri, it is not allowed at the premises. You are not allowed. So telling people exactly what to expect on a regular basis and dropping those seeds on them reinforces what? It reinforces your guidelines, your rules and expectations. So even if they didn't read it, they didn't hear it, they're getting it sent to them on a regular basis. So I want to thank you for joining us today. This was one of my most exciting episodes that we've covered, and I want you to continue to listen to the episodes that I've got, especially in transitional housing. If you've got questions, put some questions in the bottom. I want to challenge you to ask me questions as we go through these, so that you can let me know what you want to hear more of and what you want me to go deeper in, because this is going to be how we move. I want you to be so knowledgeable in this space as a compassionate investor like me, that we can truly get out here and make a difference in this world. Because as you help others transform their life in a program that you create, you are truly transforming the world.